Tonight's panel discussion is the first in a series on gratitude economy. There's an economy that is radically based in and grows out of gratitude. And tonight's topic is gratitude and vocation. Now, it's impossible to live in these days without sometime during your week thinking about the current economic crisis, what it means, what impact it's going to have, how it'll affect our futures, how we can respond to that as citizens, as individuals, and what it means to us. And there's three different ways in public life that we've seen folks respond. And the first way, it's the pathway of Hank Paulson, is to bolster up those institutions that have brought the exceptional growth in this country over the past 100 years. So you shovel more coal into that same engine to try to jumpstart it, bolster those institutions and keep them moving forward, right? There's another approach out there, and this is an approach that's taken by some legislators. And it's to suggest that those institutions themselves don't need to be bolstered only, but also need to be corrected. They need to be channeled in different ways, perhaps with more oversight or regulation. Some of them rethought from the ground up, but we change those institutions. And there's a third approach to this that doesn't find as much coverage in public conversation as the first two, but I think it's much more important. It's the thing that we're going to be talking about tonight. And it asks, what is it about the soil in which those institutions grow up that is right? And what is it in that soil, the groundwork, that needs to be corrected? Or, to put it in a different way, is there an overarching narrative or undergirding perspective that needs correcting? That's the territory of values, fundamental values. It has to do with one's worldview, their outlook, and their basic commitments about how the world works and how we understand ourselves in relation to the world. Right? And we can see how, if we compare very briefly the worldview or the value matrix of the contemporary world with the value matrix that's articulated in Scripture, we can see the contrast. For example, in the current climate right now, what's in the soil, those values that undergird things, are marked with dissatisfaction, scarcity, a desire for maximizing profits and growth, and self being defined primarily as a consumer of things. Now, that type of soil gives rise to institutions that are marked with little accountability to communities, both locally or globally, right? With poor stewardship of natural resources, with a high degree of debt, and that's driven, again, by maximizing profits in limitless growth. Now, contrast that with a biblical worldview, which is marked by some of these things. Rather than dissatisfaction, it's rooted in gratitude. Rather than a sense of scarcity, there's a conviction of God's provision. Instead of just maximized growth, there's a desire for sustainability. Right? And instead of self being defined as a consumer, persons are defined by relationships and by responsibilities. And out of that soil grows institutions that are marked by things like this. By Sabbath keeping, that is putting margins on the use of our time. And by practices like gleaning, that is putting margins on our collection of profits. And the practice of Jubilee, which is putting margins on the acquisition of wealth. Not only that, but you find accountability to the communities we live in, and also to the generations in which we find ourselves, the generations before and the generations after. Now, the friends that are with us today are each ones who are involved in today's economy in different ways, as business people, as artists, as philanthropists of different ways. And one thing they share in common is not just giving generously out of gratitude, but giving in ways that extend beyond just financially, but as a piece of their vocation, part of their response to God's call on their life. And each one of them have found ways to respond to that call of God on their life that is integrated with who they are, how they live, what they give their creativity and attention and their heart to as they live in this world.